expectations.
Good afternoon and welcome to everyone today and Happy New Year. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, January 11th, and I'm calling this regularly scheduled school board meeting to order. So thank you for being here with us. Happy New Year to everybody. We're glad to have you with us. To my board colleagues, Dr. Stubblefield, to our staff, great to see you all. Welcome, Ms. Russell. Thank you. We're glad to have you here. We'll get to that here shortly. And to all of our guests who are present with us, either in person or watching online, thank you for joining us today. So we'll go ahead and get started. Start off, as we do at every board meeting, with our board norms and protocols. As a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, I'd ask Ms. Smith to please do a roll call.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Again, welcome. Thank you, board colleagues, and great to see you. I would actually move that we amend today's agenda to move item number 10, board reports, both A and B, move those ahead of new business and right after consent agenda in the order of the agenda, just to respect our guests who are present with us that will be giving an update on those two items, so to have them go a little quicker rather than waiting through the meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move item number 10, both A and B, ahead of new business and after the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. I would now entertain a motion to approve today's amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
The agenda has been approved. Thank you, board. Just want to make sure that Ms. Humphrey's microphone is working, or if you all can hear her okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. And first up is an exciting time on our board. At any time we get to bring in any new board members who willingly come forward to participate in this great experience. It's always an exciting time for our community, and we are fortunate and honored to have Rachel Russell with us today, who is a new board member, but also two re-elected board members, Ms. Brownlee Page and Ms. Drew, who were both re-elected also willingly, and will be serving another term with us. So we're so excited to have the three of you, and we have our guests from the Wyandotte County Election Office who are here to perform the swearing in of your office. So at this time, we'll invite our guests from the election office to perform that, and I would invite our elected board members to step forward.
Oh, you don't want to be in the picture?
You will raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of Kansas. The Constitution of the State of Kansas. And faithfully and honestly perform the duties of my office. And faithfully and honestly perform the duties of my office. As board member of the Unified School District number 500. As board member of the Unified District 500. Wyandotte County, State of Kansas. Wyandotte County, State of Kansas. So help me God. So help me God.
We want to thank our guests from the election office for being present with us and blessing us with that ceremony. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know that there are some guests who are here, and so we are going to take a brief recess in case folks want to take a quick picture with any of our elected board members. So we'll take a quick 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. get started here in just a minute.
You're right.
All right, thank you. We're back online. For those watching at home, thank you for giving us a quick recess. For those present as well, again, congratulations to our 3 elected officials who were re-elected and our newly elected official. We're glad to have all of you joining our board and looking forward to serving another year with all of you. And we're going to do some amazing things, continue to do some amazing things together as a board. So thank you. We'll keep going with our agenda. And next on our agenda is a fun part of our board meetings where we get to recognize students and recognize some of the good things happening in our district. And first up, we will recognize a student who has done some artwork selected for a holiday card. And I'm not sure if we have someone introducing our students, so we'll ask them to come forward. We've got, if you want to come to the microphone, the podium, that would be great.
Hi, my name's Rick Smith. I'm the art teacher at John Fisk Elementary, and this is absolutely the best part of my job right here. This is an artwork done by Adolfo Martinez, who is this guy right here. He's standing, I don't know where it comes. Adolfo's a 5th grader at John Fisk. He's been an incredible art student the whole time. He's always been good. He just, whatever you teach him, he just takes it and goes with it. I also have to say that he has a brother and sister that are really talented, Marlon and Mateo. They're just really lucky to have all 3 of those kids in my school. So this is his artwork. So, you want to say anything, Mateo? Mateo's a little shy. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll take a picture, and just for those in attendance and those watching, Adolfo's artwork was selected by to be the 2021 holiday card sent out by the superintendent's office. So a great honor for him and his family. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and Jody Lynn, who our coordinator of fine arts, for your work. And again, congratulations, Adolfo, and to your family. And so next on our agenda is school board member appreciation.
So thank you to everyone. For those of you who aren't aware, January is School Board Appreciation Month, and I'll take a few moments to read the State of Kansas proclamation by the governor to our board members. So, to the people of Kansas, greetings. Whereas the mission of public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and prepare them for future success, and whereas the Kansas Constitution entrusts the locally elected school board with the maintenance, development, and operation of this state's public education system, and whereas the local school board members are accountable to their local community for accomplishing the mission of the public education in Kansas, and whereas Kansas public school board members advocate for our communities, our children, and our public schools, and whereas the members of the Kansas Public School Board of Education are committed to providing an excellent education for every child in each community, and whereas locally elected school board members devote countless hours to the governance of our public education system and success of Kansas children, now therefore I, Laura Kelly, Governor of the State of Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of January 22 as School Board Recognition Month in the state of Kansas, and I urge all citizens to join in this observation. done at the Capitol of Topeka under the Great Seal of the State this first date of January 1st, AD 2022 by the Governor Lori Kelly. So I want to officially say thank you to all of our board members for your service and your commitment to our community, our children, and public education, and we appreciate the countless hours that you put in, and we can't pay you enough, although we don't pay you at all. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, and again, I'll echo, I'm just privileged and proud of our board and the work that we do, and we're a great team, and we'll continue to do so and do some good work this year. Thank you. Rachel, don't get used to it. We don't always get recognized at every meeting, so just FYI. Next on our agenda, we have a KNEA reading circle, so I'll invite Dom DeRosa to come to the microphone. Thank you.
Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Clark, the members of the Board of Education. Welcome back. Thank you very much. Congratulations to the 3 inductees today. I'm proud to stand up here to represent KNEA's, our local association, and tell you a little bit about our Reading Circle program that is exclusive for the state of Kansas. And I don't know if I control this. We go to the next slide. Okay. While I'm standing up here, I do want to introduce Kendra Murphy. She is our Uniserv's representative. She's from Grant Elementary, and she serves as our Reading Circle Commissioner. The Kansas NEA Reading Circle was established by the state charter in 1926. Under the charter, the State Teachers Association was given the charge to select books, recommended books for the state public schools. So every year, our commissioners come together and they read through books and make the selection, and then they publish them into a book like this that is sent around to all the schools, libraries, for them to choose. Now I'm going to let Kendra talk a little bit about the process that she's going to be going through.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So there are 4 age groups of commissioners that are appointed. I am in the intermediate group, which means I receive books during the year for grade levels 4th through 6th. And depending on the year, we usually get 200 to 300 books, kind of depends on how the year goes. The book that you have is last year's, and we were a little bit lower in our numbers that we received. But there's a group of approximately 4 or 5 commissioners at each grade level that work together to compile a list of the books we've received and our recommendations for which ones we would choose. Out of the 200 to 300 that we receive, in your book you have the top about 50 that each level recommends as high-quality literature to and be included into the school libraries. We also look for any books that have any Kansas connections, and those are marked within the catalog. And we also have, among our ones that we recommend, out of those are also top picks, which are also marked in there. And I think there's about 10 for each group. And then once we have all those books, the one stipulation with being on the commission is I'm charged with then distributing the books. I can't keep them all. So I am able to have them distributed to Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, Bonner Public Schools, and Turner. And so what we have is approximately, I believe, around 55 books to provide for elementary school libraries, and around 25 that we have that would be appropriate for middle school libraries that we are granting to the district, because I can't keep them. So, and then within the books, some of them are also, we have our special KNEA Reading Circle gold seals, which are our top picks that we indicate, and then these are placed on the book covers, and then they go into the libraries, indicating them as highly recommended literature to be put in place to the libraries, and then go to the students and have them reading in their classrooms. No, I put them on the books. I did that. I'm actually going to meet Friday for the new upcoming group of books that we talked about. So these, the catalog you have are our 2021 recommended titles. They were all published in 2020. And now I've been working on the ones that have been published in 2021 to create the next catalog for recommended for 2022. So,
like she said, we have given, last year we gave each of the middle schools, I drove around and gave each library a box of 25 books for the middle schools. And as Kendra mentioned, we have about 55 books for the elementary this year. And I would like to say that I happened to get my hands on 2 more boxes of books for middle school. So the middle school will be able to split up some more books that I didn't even know we were giving. So we wanted to explain to you and make sure that if, I'm gonna leave these with Dr. Stubblefield. Each of you have a copy, but I've got extras. I'll leave with her so she can pass out to the different libraries so they can order books from them. But we do want to thank your time. I want to thank Kendra. This is your second year, third? Fifth year. Fifth year, and if we'll go to the next slide. Next one, okay. This is her group working in last year.
yeah, last year we had to meet virtual, so that
And
was our
then-
group picture.
The next slide shows some of our other members, and some of you longtime KCK people might recognize the young lady sitting there in blue as Sheila Bloom, her and her husband were librarians in our district for 25 plus years each. So she served as our Reading Circle Commissioner for many years as well. So I wanted to thank Kendra for her service, and she's going to continue another year or 2 or 5. And thank you for your time. Oh,
So the general public can access this list from the KAA website?
Yes, yep, they have
So
all
that
the
if
most recent
someone wants to
recommendations.
buy a present for their grandchild,
Yes.
a recommended
Be a
reading
great place
list,
to look, yes.
or if someone out in the public would like to stock their free little library in their yard, these would be some good titles to choose from?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is on the KNEA website, that if you search Reading Circle, they have all of the books for all the reading levels.
and we are the only state in all 50 that do the Reading Circle and have the award that the Authors and Publishers Prize having on their books.
Just like to say thank you for this presentation. It's very good to recognize at an early age how our young people can learn how to read. As a parent, I was prepared to have my son be in special ed, but I started reading to him and learned that he progressed and learned more through reading. And this is a very good program, and I just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing, and if there's any way that I can help to do anything, I will be more than welcome to be a part of it. Thank you.
And the books are sitting in my office, so Dr. Stubblefield, we can talk about how to get those to the buildings. I've got a whole cart full of them.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Kendra. All right. Continuing with our agenda, next is our community comment section. Just a reminder and as a refresher, since it's been a few weeks since we've had a meeting, for our community comment, anyone is welcome to give comment. Just please contact our board clerk no later than noon the Monday before the board meeting so that she may place you on the agenda. And as a reminder, everyone has 3 minutes to speak on their topic. They can address the board. If you have any handouts, if you have copies, you can leave them with the board members, or you can get them to our board clerk, and she will make sure to distribute to all board members. So all are welcome to participate in community comment. We just ask that you contact Ms. Leslie Smith to sign up. So we'll start off first, and we have Mr. Spencer Martin with us today.
Good evening, President Lopez, Dr. Stubblefield, members of the board, including our newest member, welcome. Thank you for this time. My name is Spencer Martin, and I am both an educator in the district and a parent of a child in the district, and this evening I'm here as both a parent and a concerned educator. I would like to begin by thanking the board and superintendent for a thoughtful and nuanced conversation around student schedules at your meeting on December 7th. I sincerely appreciate your cognizance of community and teacher needs and the obstacles and barriers that occur with any proposed schedule changes. I do want to highlight one specific issue that was briefly discussed, but I think may not have been highlighted as emphatically as it might need to be. One board member mentioned the education and health research around adolescence and school start times, and I wanted to surface some of those thoughts as you consider these schedule changes. In today's hyperpolarized society, there are very few things in education that produce broad consensus about their outcomes and values on student learning and well-being. One of these few issues with a broad consensus is school start times for adolescents. Switching high school students' schedule to be later in the day is so-called low-hanging fruit that is generally low-cost, implementable, and has been shown to have a distinct and measurable impact on better sleep and well-being for adolescents, and in some cases has even been correlated with better educational outcomes for students. The American Academy of Pediatrics states that the evidence strongly implicates early start times, in other words, before 8:30 a.m., as a key modifiable contributor to insufficient sleep, as well as circadian rhythm disruption in the adolescent population. I'm thankful that you are taking time to consider schedule changes for the benefits and safety of our students, and would like to strongly implore you to also consider adolescent brains and development as we do so. The recent proposed changes have high schools starting a bit later, but still before 8 a.m., and Sumner Academy starting as early as 7:15 a.m. I hope that the board continues to consider options that will allow high school and elementary school schedules to swap their current start times for developmentally appropriate needs for our adolescent learners. And I know that with any change, there are always unintended consequences, and that one, for example, may be sporting events. I do, however, believe that the effect in this area will be a small one, and that the missed class time at the end of the day every so often for athletes will be more than made up for in better academic time in the mornings and better well-being for adolescent students. I was also encouraged to hear that the district has begun to consider expanding Kids Zone that could serve to help remove some burdens that families might encounter if adolescents were in schools later in the day due to a later start time. I've included some links in the research and commentary about the research in the document that it was emailed to you, and would be happy to answer any questions that the board might have, as well as offer any help that I can in thinking through any consequences that may arise out of such a change as either a community member or a district employee. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.
I did forget to mention, and you can do this with Ms. Smith if you don't feel comfortable doing so, when you're introducing yourself, each community member who is giving comment, please state your name before you begin, and we need to record your phone number and address. So if you'd rather not give it publicly, you can please contact Ms. Leslie Smith, and she can record that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have David, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name, David. David S. with us today.
It's the best thing.
Sumi is the last name.
Sumi, thank you, David Sumi.
Sorry to have not had these emailed
No
to
problem.
you. I
No problem.
wasn't aware that that was an
Thank you
option.
so much.
Dr. Stubblefield, President Lopez, Vice President Clark, members of the board. My name's David Sumi, father of Sumner sophomore Hayden Sumi, who joins me, and it should be noted, voter for President Biden. As you know, Mayor Garner and the Board of Commissioners repealed the county's mandate for the general population last month. Now, for the sake of our youth, who are by far at the lowest risk in our population, and whose overall well-being relies heavily on this board's critical thought and courage, let's address your mandate for KCK schools. In doing so, we must soberly acknowledge that the mask mandate is not benign, not immune from short and long-term collateral damage. After a year of remote learning, which no one will deny was profoundly detrimental to student development, especially for lower-income families, there's clearly an interest in erring on the side of caution. Unfortunately, prolonging mask wearing in an attempt to mitigate additional COVID cases is myopic, inherently de-emphasizing serious harms associated with children wearing masks all day. In fact, the scientific evidence that mask wearing reduces COVID transmission is weak at best. Mike Ryan, current Health Emergencies Program Executive Director for the World Health Organization, goes even further, quote, "There's no specific evidence to suggest that the wearing of masks by the mass population has any particular benefit. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest the opposite," end quote. And he's not alone. The gross majority of peer-reviewed randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, widely regarded as the gold standard within medical research, reveal masks, even when they're clean and fitted properly, are ineffective at preventing respiratory virus transmission. And we know that many students are wearing dirty masks, promoting bacterial growth at the very least. Furthermore, last month, CNN medical analyst Leanna Wen admitted that, quote, "Cloth masks are little more than facial decorations," end quote. According to much of the best science we have on the topic, masks are not definitively making students safer. On the other hand, it's very likely that prolonged masking continues to inhibit effective learning. Students need to be able to fully interact with their teachers and one another as they do now in many other places. Private schools, several states, and many countries around the world where there have not been clear associations of higher cases, hospitalizations, or deaths. Our district, our children, need a board that's willing to critically assess available data from challenging viewpoints, even in the midst of the heightened fear surrounding the Omicron variant. Social and academic regression, as well as anxiety and a host of other risks, can be more difficult to measure, but the stakes are high nonetheless, as the ill effects will be far-reaching. For the benefit of KCK students who deserve to be ahead of the curve, I urge you to revisit and repeal your mandate empowering parent and student choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Asumi. And if you'd like, you can still email this document with the links to Ms. Leslie Smith, and she'll make sure that all the board members receive that as well.
I will do that, and of course, look forward to any feedback that you may have and any continued conversation surrounding the topic.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, I'd invite Ms. Barbara Williams with Equality Kansas Northeast to the podium. Ms. Williams, welcome.
I feel kind of short today. Or am I stating the obvious? I don't know. Well, hello, everyone. My name is indeed Barbara Williams. I'm a proud employee of KCK Public Schools. I work at Frank Rushton, Go Jaguars. And I would like to put out some positive energy into the universe, if I may, by doing a few shout outs, including what I had originally said I would say. First shout out goes to Frank Rushton preschoolers. This is on my paper. They wear their mask every single day in class without complaint. And they are thriving. All right, and the second shout out goes to my adult child. They are a science teacher over at Wyandotte High School. I want to say they purchase period products for their students or any other students in the high school at their own expense. My child buys those products for their kids. And my third shout out goes out to two groups, the Sexual Orientation, Gender, and Expression Cabinet here at KCK, and Equality Kansas Northeast. I am fortunate to be part of both groups. Early on, the cabinet members of the Sexual Orientation, Gender, and Expression Cabinet impressed upon me early on that it's very important to our teachers who are part of the LGBTQ community that they have inclusive books in their classroom libraries. And having inclusive books in the classroom allows their students to feel safe, seen, and validated. But they also said books are very expensive. Those books are very expensive. Any books are very expensive. So to help with this matter, Bridget Desmet, who is our cabinet's clerk, and she works for KCK Public Schools, purchased a long list of the books. Our teachers union here has agreed to donate books. And also, the other group that I mentioned that I'm part of, Equality Kansas Northeast, agreed to help out too because they recognize the need. And we did. We stepped up to do this. We had a fundraiser, we wrote a grant, and we got some money. And we purchased books for middle and high school teachers for their classroom libraries. Some of the books have already been given out, and teachers are thrilled to have these books in their classrooms for their students. And there are no strings attached to these books. They belong in these classrooms. I hope that Equality Kansas Northeast and my cabinet could make this into a yearly event because we want all of our students to thrive and we want to support our teachers. And I want to just give a shout out here in the audience is Tom Alonzo, the chair of Equality Kansas Northeast. And you may know him. He's a 2021 honoree for the Reasons to Believe with Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. So just give a wave to Tom here. All right, and that's all I have to say, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And as a reminder, and Ms. Smith, if you wouldn't mind following up to make sure that we have the addresses and phone numbers of those who gave public comment tonight, so that they may be recorded on the roll that's maintained by our clerk's office. Next on our agenda is communications from our superintendent of schools, Dr. Anna Stubblefield.
Good afternoon again, everyone, and I did not say Happy New Year earlier when I spoke, so Happy New Year. It is great to be back. I have a few announcements and reminders as a part of my comments this evening. First, I just want to remind everyone that as we continue to navigate through this health pandemic, it is important that we adapt our approaches to ensure we have appropriate protocols in place to maintain a productive and safe working environment for us all. On January 10th, yesterday, we officially started our COVID-19 testing at over 50 sites for unvaccinated staff. To this point, 70% of our staff approximately have uploaded proof of COVID vaccination into our Talent Ed system. We also are utilizing Validity for our volunteers to upload their vaccination cards. As we moved into our partnership with USA Medical and Bright Star, we are currently offering the PCR test as we do not have access to saliva tests until February 1st at the earliest due to a national shortage of testing supplies. We are navigating this shortage with individuals who may prefer the saliva test, but we're asking those who need to test to please be patient and work with us, and we are working to find alternatives in the meantime. All staff and families receive the updated CDC guidance via an email communication. The district website is also being updated with the most recent information as well. We also ask that everyone allow grace with one another as things change. With science, you live and learn and you make adjustments. And so as we make adjustments given by our health professionals and the CDC, we ask that you just show us some grace and we'll get as much information to you as possible.
Yes.
Regarding quarantine and remote learning, we sent out communication last week to parents and staff to address questions regarding COVID-19 and remote learning. On January 6th, 2022, the CDC provided updated guidance for the COVID-19 isolation in K-12 schools. The guidance covered the following areas: what to do if staff or student has COVID symptoms, steps to take if your test is positive, steps to take if it is negative, actions you are expected to take if you are exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID. We want to remind everyone that the board policy requires a mask to be worn at all times on district property. Refusal to adhere to this policy is insubordination, and we'll address it appropriately. We do have masks available for all of our staff members and our students if they don't have them, and when you enter our property, we have masks available as well. Remote learning, I've been getting several questions about why we haven't gone back to remote learning, and I just want to remind everyone remote learning is allowed but limited to 40 hours according to HB 2134. No district can provide more than a total of 40 hours of remote learning for any student unless an individual student, because of an extraordinary circumstances such as illness, medical condition, or injury, cannot reasonably attend in person, and the local board authorizes the student to temporarily attend through remote learning in excess of the 40-hour limit, or due to disaster, the State Board of Education authorize the school district to provide remote learning in excess of 40 hours and up to a total of 240 hours because the district could not reasonably adjust schedules to comply with the state law. I want to thank the Unified Government Public Health Department for donating 24,000 masks to our district. They donated 24,000 KN95 masks that are now available for our principals or supervisors to get from our warehouse to distribute to staff. The KN95 masks are currently available for staff use only and can be ordered from the district storeroom at no charge. The masks that we have are not fitted for children, so therefore we don't have them available to students. KN95 are recommended by the CDC, many local departments, including our local health department, because they provide protection against the virus transmission. We have been partnering with the Wyandotte County Public Health Department and the Kansas City Royals to strike out COVID for those students ages 5 to 11. We are hosting 3 vaccine events. The first of the 3 was held yesterday at Grant Elementary School. 116 kids between the ages of 5 and 11 received their first dose to the Pfizer vaccine. Another 57 received their second dose, bringing the total on yesterday to 173. The next 2 events will be held at Gloria Willis Middle School, located at 1735 North 64th Street. The date will be Wednesday, January 12th and February 2nd. Both the events are from 4 to 6 p.m. To this date, the district, partnering with Wyandotte County Health, have vaccinated over 1,000 individuals, and we appreciate the partnership. Enough is enough. Since been established in 2020, the Enough is Enough program was built to inform the community on issues facing our students. The next event will be held on Thursday, January 20th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. virtually. Students can access the link through the district website. And then there will also be an event on January 27th. We'll be offering a virtual session for our family, staff, and community members to address some of the top issues facing our county, our school district, and our students. The adults wanting to join the conversation on January 27th can also access the link on our website. Our attendance winners for the month of December, elementary, I want to say congratulations to them. Brian Salazar from Whittier, Jaden Espinoza from Silver City, Braden Pfeiffer from New Chelsea, Isaiah Williford from Stony Port South, and at the middle school level, Kimberly Batista from Argentine, Jackson Martinez from Eisenhower, and at the high school, Daniela Mora from Harmon, and Francisco Flores Padres from FL Slagle. So congratulations to our attendance winners. And finally, I just want to remind our parents and staff and community that we sent out a survey from the University of Kansas to help us gain information for our environmental scan. The purpose of the survey is to identify our strengths and our weaknesses and provide a roadmap towards our improvements in the areas where it is needed. The survey is available online now for parents in multiple languages. If you have not done so, please take a moment to complete the survey, and please take a few moments to provide feedback and contribute to our efforts. Thank you, and that's all that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. I don't have too much to add today. Again, I do just want to say welcome back to all of our staff after winter break, and we are looking forward to a successful second semester. And just thank you for all of your commitment and everything that you do for our students and families in our district. Your commitment, passion to serve is amazing. So just thank you for all that you do. And I'll also second what Dr. Stubblefield said around our COVID events, our COVID vaccination events. All the staff that work that do an amazing job. I continue to hear from our health department and from other partners about the success that we have as a district and the number of families and students who attend our COVID vaccination events continue to be some of the highest in the county. So kudos to all of our staff that organize that and make sure that that they go well. And then just a reminder for our board that we do have a special board meeting tomorrow. I've missed you all, so we are having back-to-back meetings tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon. That is July 12th. July 12th at 12 o'clock. Thank you.
In our dreams.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Ms. Drew.
First of all, I want to thank everyone who did vote for me to be a part of this. Just wanted to give an overview of what I've been doing since December. I had the opportunity to be the guest speaker at Park University graduation for African American students. Unfortunately, I was not in town to be there in person, so I had to do it virtually because on December the 9th through the 11th, I attended the AVID National Conference in Dallas, Texas, and with several members of the school board, the school district, Dr. Stubblefield and several principals, and I wanted to say that I was greatly impressed with that. To each board member, I did do an overview and typed up a summary of what I did learn while I was there, and there is one in your folder. And Dr. Stubblefield, I will make sure that you do get one so that you can share with the other people who did attend. On December 15th, we had the WICO Legislative Breakfast here at the central office, and I was here in attendance for that, as well as several other board members. We looked at ways in which we can focus on commonalities of school funding, educational governance, and high-quality staffing and CAPERS. On December the 15th, several of us as board members, again, that same evening at 6:00 p.m. went to the KASP workshop at the Shawnee Mission School District in Overland Park, and we went, and that was the night where it rained very hard here in Kansas City, Kansas, but yet we went and attended that meeting. On January the 11th, which was today, because I will be virtually online with the NASB Advocacy Institute and Equity during the latter part of this month. They had a special symposium training today from 12 to 1, and I was involved in that, teaching us how to prepare to be able to speak to those individuals who are in Congress. I just want to say, as board members, we are committed to doing the best that we can, and I'm appreciative of the fact that I have had an opportunity to do that, despite the fact that Dr. Stubblefield did mention we don't get paid, but it is a learning process of listening and learning and doing the best we can to help our students, our community, and our parents. And again, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. Any other comments from board members?
I will comment real quickly if I can figure out how to work this microphone. I just also want to say thank you to those who voted for me, but I also want to say thank you to all of those that have welcomed me to this experience in a great way. You don't go unnoticed, and I really appreciate that. I will also say I want to give a shout out to my mom and my dad, who were not able to be here tonight, but I know that I am who I am today because of them, and so I am so grateful and thankful, and I just know that I wanted to say something in that regard. So looking forward to the journey ahead and working together as a team, and thank you all for everything.
We're glad to have you, Ms. Russell. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez, I too would like to thank everyone who voted for me, and I'd like to thank the people who didn't vote for me. So I just thank everybody because you did participate, and that's what it's all about. And hopefully we can continue to do things to make our district a better district. Like Ms. Drew, I attended the WICO breakfast as well as the legal issues forum that they had on December the 15th. So anytime we have an opportunity to go and learn, it's a blessing. The storm was something to behold, but we made it. So yes, we're thankful for that.
Thank you, Ms. Page, and grateful to have you serve again with us. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, we will hear an update from our Director of Libraries, Ms. Carol Levers.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Dr. Stubblefield. Welcome, Ms. Russell. Looking forward to have some time with you so that you can learn about the public libraries as well, because that's part of your overseas. So, and congratulations to our re-elected board members.
Thank you.
On behalf of the public libraries, I wish you a happy new year to everybody.
Thank you.
So December, as you can see, we've signed up additional 156 new library cards in this system. Our services, as you can see, was higher than the previous year in December.
Yes.
And the dates will show it right there. On the other side, our checkouts, we've checked out 32,908 items in the month of December, and we've placed 4,178 items on hold for our people in the community. As you can see, West Wyandotte is really the largest circulator in our system. We we had to close the Facebook story time because the publisher had restrictions. We could only use the Facebook from April 6th of 2020 to December 29th of 2021. A lot of people are disappointed, and we had about 2,779 peak live views and 108,919 total views on the Facebook. The staff at the libraries have put together a goodbye story time, and if you want to go to the link, it is bit.ly/capital goodbye capital story time. And that's for everybody. But not to worry, we are still using Zoom to do story time, but it's just that the Facebook was the go-to at the time, but there's nothing we can do. That's what the publishers do. So hopefully we won't have to do too many story times, and we'll get back to doing in-house. December was Native American month, and we didn't have a lot of Native American art. And fortunately, or happenstance, I just went to Studio 7 to do some portraits. And as I was picking up one, I noticed this big, large picture of Native American, and I asked the owner, hey, who took that picture? And he said, don't you know Ruthie Ingram? I said, no, I've never heard even about the name. And he said, and he showed me a couple more of Native American art that she did. And I immediately got in touch with her and asked her, and I made a space at West Wyandotte and asked her if she has any more Native American pictures or art. And she said yes. And we made an arrangement. We had this display at the West Wyandotte Library all of December. And we usually work 2 years in advance for people to exhibit at the libraries, which is a long time, but that's just the way it is. We've asked her if we do have a space, will she, on a moment's notice, just bring the rest? And fortunately, the January and February person called and canceled their exhibit. And I called her again, so she brought in, and this is the December one, so we didn't have time to put the January, February one on, but you are welcome to go to the West Wyandotte Library to see Ruthie Ingram's art. She is a local artist, and of course, she is retired, and she just does a fantastic job, so that'll be good for you guys to enjoy. Eagle Days are coming up. Is coming up, actually. But it's going to be the 20th annual Eagle Days. It's going to be January 15th and January 16th. The 15th, the Saturday, will be from 9 to 5, and Sunday will be from noon to 4. So we like advance reservations required because of space. We usually use the Ethel Schlegel Library and the one across the river, across the lake. So please, it's really a fantastic time to view the eagles and all the wildlife. And of course, our next virtual author event will be February 17th at 7 p.m. And we'd like you to register at kckpl.librarymarket.com, and you will get a book. We're actually starting tomorrow with the read aloud, and I think I've just received 2 people on the board that's interested. So please let us know. The books are completely almost gone. So if you want to go there quickly, so that, because I think tonight they're going to make a splash at the library, and people will be kind of gobbling that up. So if you want one, please let me know ASAP. And he will be there, but we will be reading from tomorrow. Every Wednesday from tomorrow, we'll do chapter by chapter, so you're welcome to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levers. Any questions for Ms. Levers from board members? Okay, hearing none, thank you for the update and the report. Is there a motion to accept the report from the KCK libraries?
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next is our consent agenda. I would actually like to pull item F, as in Frank, from the consent agenda. I'd now entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda minus item F.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Regarding item F, and I apologize for not catching this earlier. Ms. Smith, I apologize for not catching this. The resolution, there's a second part to that resolution that is not included in the current item F that I would ask to amend. So I'll ask Mr. Goheen for some language to help out here.
Actually, this is my fault, not Mr. Lopez's fault. But there are actually two resolutions by statute that you have to do tonight. The first one is the resolution that appears on item F. That's the resolution to set the official meeting time, place. That can be approved by the board as a resolution. By statute, you also have to do a second resolution tonight. That resolution, or the statute, is KSA 72-1133. The resolution you passed last year would be the same form with just a different date. The resolution from last year, and I'll go ahead and read it so that you guys know what it says, and then we'll have a copy circulated. The resolution is, Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas KSA 72-1133 requires boards of education to elect the board president and vice president at the first meeting on or after the second Monday in January of each year, or at a later meeting date during the calendar year if so determined by the board at that first meeting. And then the resolution is, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Unified School District Number 500, Wyandotte County, Kansas, will elect its school board president and vice president at its first meeting of the Board of Education in July 2022. And so that would be the second resolution the board would need to adopt unless the board chooses to do the elections for the president and vice president tonight. So those are the two resolutions you have to pass by statute.
Thank you, Mr. Goheen. So can we amend the current resolution on, or do we just?
I would amend well, I think you could amend that item F, but you have two resolutions you need to pass. So I'd pass the resolutions separately. I would do the first resolution is the one that appears on the agenda, the consent agenda, and then the second resolution would take up as a second motion.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution to establish official meeting time and place that was item F on the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion from the board?
I have a question. Now, we're taking it off. Now, are we going to do this tomorrow, work on the time and place? Or does it stand as it is?
No, the resolution, you're not taking it off the consent agenda. It's removed from the consent agenda, but you're still voting on the item tonight.
Okay, but did we establish a time? I just see time and meeting place. So what is the time? Is it still 5 o'clock? Did we propose a time? We didn't do that.
That should be included in the resolution. So if the resolution, and I reviewed the resolution, I thought it had the time and place on it. If it doesn't, then we would need to add that right now.
Yeah, because what are we voting on? What is the time?
So what I read is for the 2022 and 2023 school year meeting dates.
That's correct.
Right. So, but
But
you're,
I'm just saying, we still never gave a time. We're saying
As is
time.
designated already when we're meeting, that's the time and the place.
Okay, but I'm just saying, I'm not clear. All I hear is time. What's the time? I mean, I'm voting on something. I want to know what is the time?
5 o'clock.
So
Okay,
current
but
meeting times
we-
are 5 o'clock, and you're
Okay,
right.
but we didn't talk about the time. Are we changing the time, or does the time stay the same always? That's all I want is clarity on that.
I would say you get a resolution, you get a motion, second, do discussion, and then amend the resolution to add the time to it. If 5 o'clock's the time you want, include 5 o'clock in the resolution. If you want a different time, make the resolution to include a different time.
Okay, I'm just saying, we just said time. And I'd like to know what I'm voting on, what time. I know we're talking about what we used to do, but are we still doing that? And are we changing it? That's all I'm asking, for clarity.
Ms. Humphries?
I assumed that we were voting to keep what we currently have that we voted on in July. And this is saying that when July comes up, then we will establish new meeting times and dates. Is that correct, Greg?
Yes, that's what you're doing. You're extending the time to set everything until the July meeting and not changing it. But to Ms. Page's point, I think it's completely fair to make sure the resolution reflects the time so it's accurate.
Okay.
And the times have not been discussed or changed as of yet, so the board, whatever the pleasure of the board is, if you wanted to set a different time, but current times are 5 o'clock meeting time. But we could, if those that made the motion and the second wanted to do an amendment to their motion to include the time, that would be appropriate.
Could we just reference the fact that we wanted to fulfill what we voted on in July,
Well,
which was when we set the dates and times for the year?
that would be for the coming school year at that point. I think if you want to set a different time for the meetings going forward, I think you do it now. So if you don't, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you want to set a different time, I think you do it now.
And the only reason you had it on the agenda for tomorrow, time and place. So just for clarity, I want to make sure what we're doing. Are we going to talk about that tomorrow, or we're doing it right now? Just for clarity.
Sure. And so and thank you for the question, Ms. Page. So for tomorrow's purposes of the meeting was to have a conversation around whether the board was interested in changing the time of the regular school board meetings, which currently are at 5 o'clock, but was going to be up for discussion, not necessarily that we would change the meeting times tomorrow, but at least entertain a discussion since that has been brought forward previously.
So I've got a suggestion, and that suggestion is by statute, you have to do the resolution tonight. I would adopt the resolution tonight. You can change the time and place of meeting at any point during the year. So if you're going to have a discussion about this tomorrow and you decide to change it tomorrow, you can make a motion tomorrow to change the time and the place if you so desire. It's just by statute tonight, you have to set it. So that's.
Okay, well, I get that, but it threw me off when it was on the agenda for tomorrow. So I didn't know, what are we doing?
Fair
Just for
point.
clarity.
Yep.
Thank you for the question. So would you like to amend your motion, Ms. Humphries, to include the time in your motion for the resolution that's presented?
However Greg thinks it should be worded.
I think you could leave it as is for tonight. I think that satisfies the statute. And then if you guys want to set a different time than the regular meeting time tomorrow, I think you do that.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Page. Other questions?
Mr. Lopez, I have a question, please.
Dr. Nguyen, please.
So, Greg, did you say the resolution just says the election of officers will be in July and that time and place, whatever, is for 22-23?
There's two resolutions. The first resolution deals with setting the dates of the meeting, and the second resolution deals with setting the election of officers. And so the first resolution is simply setting the dates of the meetings to continue as the first and second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. So it's just continuing what we are currently doing. If there's going to be a change to the time or date of the meetings, that will be discussed tomorrow, but for purposes of the one statute, we have to do that tonight. The second resolution deals with whether or not you guys want to continue this board's practice of doing election of officers in July, or whether you want to do something different. So it's just,
Okay.
it's just the.
Let's go back to the first part.
Yep.
Is that, I mean, we essentially approved the resolution for 21, 22. So does this start with January 22? I mean, we're actually making this more complicated than necessary.
Right, we are.
January 22 or July 22?
So this would be for the, hold on a second, let me make sure I got it right. I believe it's for this calendar year is what it's setting right now.
Okay.
So it would be going forward from today's date.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion?
So a
Russell?
point of clarity, so the last line says this is setting the meeting dates, alternative meeting dates during the 22-23 school year. We're currently in the 21-22 school year, so if we choose to change the time, not only impacts the current school year, and this resolution is for the next school year.
Yeah, and the resolution that the board adopted last year was for the current school year.
Okay.
So this.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, this resolution, by statute, is setting the meeting dates going forward for the next school year.
Beginning July 19th.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion? Not, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Win, yeah. Dr.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Next, so as Mr. Goheen mentioned, we need to have a resolution to establish election of school board officers, and Mr. Goheen provided some language that we used last year, if that is the will of the board.
So move.
Second,
There's a motion and a second to adopt the resolution with the language that Mr. Goheen read. Any questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, board, for that. All right. So we will continue with our agenda. And a reminder, we have moved board reports up. So next up, we would hear about the Learn to Swim program. And I'd invite Mr. Edwin Birch.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Stubblefield, board members. Joining me tonight, we have Gary with the YMCA, and we also have Angel Herbert with the Unified Government Parks and Rec. They're going to, excuse me, present to us tonight. Thank you. Gary.
Thank you, Edwin.
My name is Gary Lynn. I'm the Senior Vice President for the YMCA of Kansas City, and we are excited to be here tonight and talk about a Learn to Swim program that we've been working with our partners here for the last handful of months to be able to implement. I also don't want the excitement about talking about the program to really overshadow the reason we're here. And we're here because of a tragedy. We're here because of a tragedy that took place this past summer at the Parkland Pool, and that is really the foundation of why we're here. But we're also here because there's individuals that care enough about the Kansas City, Kansas community to ensure that a community response program is put into place. And I want to credit Dennis Williams, who's a KCK native, who is really the instigator and the fueler of convening this group and beginning those discussions, putting resources in place so we could implement a type of program that will be kicking off next month at our Providence YMCA. And through the course of the year, we're going to give every child the opportunity to a quality swim lesson that's a part of the Kansas City, Kansas Kids Zone program. And so we will be kicking off a 6-week rotation program with Whittier and Hazel Grove. Sorry, I had to confirm there. Whittier and Hazel Grove, and we'll be taking them through a 6-week Learn to Swim program that'll teach them the basis of swimming. And then we will come back to some other schools throughout the course of the year and into some summer programs as well. But the idea is that this becomes a sustainable program that we can continue to do year over year over year, and not only ensure that a tragedy that took place this past summer doesn't repeat itself, but we also put our community in a position to where our kids are becoming such valuable swimmers that they're able to lifeguard our public pools. And it's also, we hope it becomes a workforce development type of program as well. So we at the Y, we're excited to work with our partners who have been phenomenal in this process of making sure to ensure all the details get worked out through transportation and access and swim caps and you name it. So it's a very exciting program. We're looking forward to get it kicked off. And I'll turn it over to Angel for comments.
Yes, thank you. I am Angel Ober. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the Unified Government. So again, I want to thank you all for your time tonight and also just reiterate a lot of what Gary has said. What happened this past summer is something that, we never want to see happen in our life. And I just want to say from my experience as well as working in Parks and Recreation and here in the community, what we have identified when we go out for recruiting for our lifeguard programs in previous years is that, we work really well with the school district that allow us to come in and recruit during lunch. And, we've always had a lot of success in getting names of interested youth that want to be lifeguards for us. But when, push came to shove and the days came for conditioning, what we found is such a low turnout of students showing up to these conditionings and trainings. And well, what we began to find out is that it was an even bigger problem, and it was that these kiddos in our community just don't have access to the opportunity to learn that skill of swimming. And so back in 2018, I even remember meeting with, my assistant county administrator and former USD 500 leadership at the time, and a few of our elected bodies that are very invested in this for our community as well, and talking about what can we do to bridge that gap and bring this opportunity back to our community. So I am very excited on behalf of Parks and Recreation and for our community to be able to have the support of the YMCA, of USD 500, of Warner Media to be able to have this pilot program that is so important to our community. And we can only hope that it continues to grow, this pilot program, and to where we are able to offer it at other levels, the high school level. So hopefully, in the end, we are being able to, have some kiddos in our community that can have these lifeguarding jobs that are working right back and giving back to the community that they live in and love. So I can't say enough how exciting this is for us, and just hope to see the program grow. And again, thanks for the support and outreach that we've had from everyone in the community, because it definitely takes all of us. So we're very excited. Again, I also want to reiterate a little bit of our plans for 2022 for Parkwood Pool. We have every intention to open. It's never been our intention to not, so we are very excited. I'm going to start my spiel now. If you know anybody that wants to be a lifeguard, please send them my way. Have them call the Parks office. We're gearing up to get our applications open and starting recruitment early on that. So we're very excited to be able this year to get the pool up and running. And, the past 2 years with COVID has posed a challenge, which is, why we have not opened. And I will say, I'll be very transparent, as everybody probably knows, is the aquatics industry is facing a shortage of guards. You probably saw it on the news last year, but it is a national problem. I know Gary's sitting here saying, yep, so we are going to do everything we can to make sure that we are recruiting and getting these kiddos interested and making sure that, we are paying them for their time, because at the end of the day, they're saving lives, right? And that's an important job to us. So if you know anybody, send them our way to Parks and Rec. We're excited. We're starting that campaign now, and we're excited for summer 2022, so.
Thank you, Gary and Angel. Dr. Stubblefield?
So I just want to add, because we'll do the similar presentation for a couple of boards, that this is a start. I just want to reiterate that. And we're starting with the Kids Zone kids, because on Wednesday, as we planned together, we were looking at making sure there was no barriers to access. And this was the first group of kids that we know they get out of school early, and we have the time built in the day. So our intention is to expand it to look. We talked about options in our middle school during the day in the upcoming years, and we are still fleshing that out, for a 6-week period when they have PE or another course. So if people are thinking it's going to be limited to Kids Zone kids, it will not. That's just our start, and then we'll figure out how to access kids who don't necessarily attend Kids Zone. And then utilizing and leveraging the schedules at the middle and high schools to make sure they also have the opportunity to learn to swim or become stronger swimmers, so we can develop a pipeline of lifeguards. So I'm excited about the partnership and the opportunities. We did look at our pools within our district, but with our littles, just because you need, and I'm probably saying it wrong, being able to step down, the YMCA Providence pool was the most appropriate pool to launch it, but we do have plans and access as we build capacity to maybe offer it at multiple sites at a time. And so over the next few years, we're hoping this program will expand, and we'll be able to offer any of our kids in our community the opportunity to learn to swim or become stronger swimmers, to pursue careers and or short-time careers as lifeguards in the community.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Ms. Page?
Yeah, ma'am, I met you this summer at the protest for Parkwood Park, and you had a number of young people to sign up. Have you followed through on any of that? Because you're saying if we know, send them to you. Have you all even thought about going to all the high schools and making an appeal, doing a presentation, trying to get the young people? Because sometimes we got to go to them.
Yep, absolutely.
But I do know a number of them signed up. And I didn't know if you followed through on the list. You all said that's what you were going to do. So have you talked to any of them?
Yeah, so I can kind of give you the final totals of what we ended up doing. So last summer, in lieu of opening the pool, we did want to give the kiddos still an opportunity to make money and also an opportunity to get experience and exposure to swimming. So we took that opportunity to go out and give out applications. So I know that we gave out 75 hard applications. And out of those 75 that we distributed, we had many help doing that. HR received 10 applications back. We contacted all 10 of those applicants. We reached out to them. We made phone calls. We even sent letters. We had 7 of them come and partake in the pre-test that was held at Parkwood Pool. The pre-test, we had an instructor who was WSI certified. We wanted to ensure that the kids had what it took to go on to be a lifeguard, because you got to have very strong skills to be a lifeguard. So the instructor from those 7 kids that participated said, 3 of you really have what it takes, skills, ability, conditioning to go on and be a lifeguard. So we, the Parks and Recreation Department, sent those 3 participants to training through Midwest Pools, their lifeguard American Red Cross 2-day certification. So we sent 3 of those individuals, and one of those individuals attended both days and ended up passing, and then 2 of those individuals attended 1 day and then did not attend the second day, so unfortunately did not get certified. So we did make every effort to get out in the community, and get these kiddos engaged and try to get them certified. But it is a very extensive program. Again, we are saving lives, and you got to be a strong swimmer. I know a lot of adults that have a hard time going to the deep end and getting that break. So, but you're absolutely right. In years past, we do work with the school district. They've been great about letting us in during the lunch period to get these names. We've probably still got a stack of them just, sitting there, their numbers and emails. So we do everything that we can to make sure we're recruiting and getting the attention of the kiddos and interacting to them, because you're absolutely right, ma'am. You have to go to these kids these days. You got to interact with them and keep them engaged and, so they can still be here and interested when Memorial Day comes around, and then keep them through the season. So it's definitely a big effort, but we've been very lucky to have a lot of support and hope we can continue to have that as we move forward.
Thank you. I see Dr. Nguyen has her hand raised. Dr. Nguyen?
Yes, thank you. And to the gentleman, first I'd like to say to the gentleman representing the Y, I'm a card-carrying member of the Providence branch. So I know the importance of that facility as a partner. With your indulgence, I've had this conversation with Dr. Stubblefield, so she knows the questions I'm going to ask. But let me circle around to one of the simple ones. Why aren't you speaking with the members of our swim teams to train as lifeguards?
Yeah, so I would say traditionally, swim teams are a big source of a pipeline to be able to lifeguard. I would say there's been a change over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've seen that. And so we have swim teams at the majority of our Ys, and traditionally they have been lifeguards and for us. Nowadays, swim teams spend more time in the water than they ever have before. They're swimming before school, they're swimming after school, and then they're doing meets on the weekends. And so the only times that they actually have the ability to be able to lifeguard is a very short time period where they're having to choose, do I concentrate on my studies? Do I have a part-time job? Or is that my free time, right? And so we still have some swim team members, but I would say they're much more rare than they have been in the past. I've been with the Y for 21 years and been a part of hiring lifeguards during that entire time frame. And we've definitely seen a transition in the interest of being a lifeguard. It's not a cool job, I guess I would say, anymore. And the numbers that Angel described, we go through this throughout the entire year, and to give out 75 applications, and out of those 75, you get a small handful that you receive back, and even less that pass the qualified test or show up for it. That's not an anomaly. We're seeing that not only in the Kansas City area, but Ys across the entire country. But great question.
Okay, so thank you for the obstacles that you face. My question is, have you consulted, I guess Dr. Stubblefield, this would be perhaps your issue, the swim coaches at our high schools to see if specifically we have any students who are currently on the swim team interested in going out to be a lifeguard?
We are
That's a
planning.
yes, no question.
Yeah, we haven't, but once we return, it's on my list to work with Tammy and the swim coaches to make sure that we get the applications and put them in touch with Parks and Rec. But no, I did not do it since our conversation, but it's something that we were going to do this second semester as they are engaging in their swim programs and competitions.
And I will add to that as well. Sorry. I know in years past, we have reached out as Parks and Recreation to the swim team as well, and just, haven't been real lucky on getting a lot of interest. And again, it's a lot of what Gary was saying. The kiddos these days also have a lot of options on other positions. We get told frequently that they can go work at Target for $17 an hour. So we've definitely listened, and so I can assure you that we are working on strategies towards making those hourly rates for these lifeguards, really competitive, because, we want them working for us and back in our community.
And Mr. Lopez, if you'll permit, my second question is, so what criteria was used to choose these two schools?
Whittier and Hazel Grove were chose because of the Kids Zone location, the number of other schools that feed into them. So we were touching multiple kids multiple schools, and because one is an early school and one is a late school, we can run 2 sessions on the Wednesdays. And so as we rotate and I think both of them had the highest number of attendance for the kids who are attending Kids Zone, so we would reach more kids. And then as we continue to add the next 2 schools after the next 6 weeks, we'll do a pairing of late and early start, and then the number of kids that were in attendance. But those 2 were selected because they have, I think, the largest groups of students, and one was an early and one was a late school.
So help me understand. So is that the criteria that we're using to choose them?
No, we're planning.
The other schools that have similar characteristics could maybe expect to fall in line for whichever next 6-week period?
So we're working with the Kids Zone coordinators, and they are the ones who recommend it. So all of our Kids Zone kids will have a full calendar rotation for the families and communities of those schools. But those 2 were selected because they are the ones that have the most kids who attend it currently. And one was an early and one was a late. So all of the schools will eventually go through the 6-week process, or have the opportunity. We'll offer at all of the schools.
Okay, so in your comment to some of the questions, you said that you would measure, let's say, something to the effect that you would expand based on the success. What criteria are you using to measure success?
So and the response to that is, so as we go through this, we'll expand to all of them, but we'll have lessons learned, right? Like we have a certain number that we're doing. So if we do too many kids at once, we may need to have more sessions, or once we build a capacity to be at multiple locations, we may be able to do multiple schools at once. But with this first group, those who are providing the training and us transporting kids and getting them changed and making sure that they have access to swimwear and swim caps and some of the other just logistical things, we're planning to continue the program, but we may have to make some adjustments on time frame. Like we have an idea that it'll take an hour and a half or however long. But if it takes longer, we may then have to say we can't run 2 on Wednesday, so we'll have to stretch this out. So that's the general component around the success, is being able to keep the kids safe, make sure that they receive the instruction, make sure that they have adequate time to change in and out of their uniforms and get them back to the schools so that their parents can pick them up. And then for the late school, exploring the option if parents prefer to come to pick them up from the Y, to see if that's feasible and if we have enough adults to make sure that we can do that in a safe manner.
Yeah, and if I could just add,
Okay, and thank you.
just as Dr. Stubblefield said, this is just the start, right? It's just the start to a program that we hope to continue to become more efficient at, identify funding, identify different bodies of water, identify additional staffing to where we can put some type of program in place. And my hope is somewhere down the road, whether it's 2 or 3 years, and we were pretty adamant when we talked about this as a group that we're not looking for a one and done program. We're looking for a sustainable program that comes year after year after year, or we haven't done our whole goal of truly raising the community up and being able to serve some of these pools as lifeguards and stuff. And so we're going to continue working at it, but it's exciting to be able to kick the program off this way.
And likewise, I add my comments that we've had this conversation over the years, so we realize it's just a start, but it's a late and needed start. And so that is the source of my questions. And so thank you for your response. And last but not least, Dr. Stubblefield, perhaps we can consider future to teach swimming in the gym classes, especially the high school where there are pools. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Other questions or comments? Ms. Russell?
Yeah, so My first question, I guess, is, and thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for answering a couple of them along the way. Angel, you talked about the opportunity that you had for young adults this last summer. Will you also offer that opportunity for middle and high school students, since there will not be an official program from the district? Will they have that opportunity to do that 10-week thing again?
The lifeguard work-study program?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no, that's not our plans at this time, just due to bandwidth, really, and staffing and funding. Our main focus is solely on recruiting enough lifeguards to get Parkwood Pool open and up and running.
Okay. I think to Dr. Nguyen's last point, trying to figure out if there is a way that we can incorporate that work-study program into our programming. Would there be an opportunity for us to look at that curriculum and to potentially adapt to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know my Assistant County Administrator, Emmett Cross, is also here, and I've been in discussions with him and our leadership team at the UG on, identifying some funding and resources to make this more of a 365-day-a-year effort, to where we are working even more closely with the school district and trying to bridge that gap even more, and hopefully offering some more programs. And
Appreciate that. And my last questions are shifting from the actual programming itself and more around the liability, and who is actually responsible for the individuals. I asked about cost, and the cost that was mentioned was related to transportation and how that will be covered. Is this something that our insurance will cover, or is the YMCA taking on the liability while the students are present? Are these students interacting with the general public while they're at their pool? What liabilities do we as a district have with this type of program?
So this will be a YMCA program. So our YMCA certified staff will be teaching the swim lessons, will be guarding the pools, and will work to supervise along with the kids on staffing around the pool deck in terms of changing in and out of the swimmitoire.
Do we have adequate kids zone staffing, and is it more than just juniors and seniors?
So the Kids Zone, and Michelle or Lisa may not be on, the Kids Zone staffing will be escorting the kids over there and supervising them, but the YMCA staff will provide the actual instruction. All of the kids from Kids Zone who choose to participate, they sign forms to engage in additional activities. So our insurance under those components for transporting them and that kind of thing, they do activities now, so they're covered under whatever pretense, that they normally are. This is just viewed as an activity for Kids Zone.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and I just want to notate and appreciate your previous comment around making sure that we're eliminating barriers, so things like head caps, swimwear, all of those things, if we as a district can make sure that we are doing our best to make sure that kids are appropriately ready to participate in a way that they're comfortable, I support that, and thank you for making sure that was taken care of.
Thank you. Other questions?
I just have one question. Will there be conversation with our families on how the kids can continue to swim? So I understand the 6 weeks. I appreciate the 6 weeks. My kids have taken swimming lessons, and while we appreciate 6 weeks, we learn some. We don't learn enough always to do much with it after that. And memberships can be expensive. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so we're talking now about what type of incentive we can put in place to offer some sort of incentive to continue with progressive swim lessons at the Y or various community groups once they go through one of these programs. So absolutely, there's going to be those opportunities in place. And, as we continue to raise more money out in the community to offer financial assistance, it makes those type of programs even less expensive.
Okay, so it is something that we're not there yet, is what I'm hearing.
So we'll definitely offer the programs, and individuals, once they go through a Learn to Swim program for that 6 week, they can absolutely sign up for another swim lesson, but it's outside of this partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know some employers, and you will talk to, I'm thinking about families, and do they know what the Y is able to offer? Do they know about discounts that maybe they can get through their own employers?
Right.
Those are questions I had to ask.
Yeah, every child will go home with a swim lesson registration marketing piece from the YMCA to hopefully explain some of those things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you, Gary and Angel, Dr. Stubblefield and team. Excited to get this moving forward and to continue to grow. So, and thank you, board, for the great questions. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a report on our district independent audit from Brad Isnard and Tracy Kaiser.
Good evening, Dr. Stubblefield, Mr. Lopez, Ms.
evening.
Clark, and the rest of the board. Brad Isnard, Director of Finance, here with you this evening to present our independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ending June 30th of #21, along with the audited financial statements. With me this evening, I've got Jonathan Nybarger, Vice President with Allen Gibbs and Hulk, or AGH for short, which is our independent auditing firm, and he will go through the auditor's report with you this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Nybarger, and I'm the officer who oversaw the district's audits this year. I'll be going through our reports and financial statements with you, and then answer any questions that you may have. Starting off, the report that I was going to address first this evening is a 6-page letter that all of you should have in front of you. It addresses some of our required communications to those charged with governance and all of you as board members. I'm not going to go through every item in this letter, but I'll just hit a few of the key points. At the top of the second page, it discusses the financial statements and that these are presented under the Kansas regulatory basis of accounting, and that there were no significant changes in accounting standards that the district adopted this year. The next item notes that we did not identify any unusual transactions during our audit, and we did also did not have any required audit adjustments that we noted to the district's books as part of our audit. However, then the next item is one adjustment that the district elected to pass on recording this year. This was an immaterial adjustment and will simply be recorded as an expenditure in the fiscal year 2022 financial statements. And then finally, on the third page, there was one recommendation that we had after our audit, which was for the district to obtain and retain proper supporting documentation for amounts paid to employees. Ultimately, the goals for our audit are to ensure compliance with laws and regulations, to ensure that the district's books and financial statements, or that the financial statements accurately reflect the books and records of the entity, and that internal controls are in place and operating effectively. And I'm happy to report as part of our audit this year that the answer to all of those questions is yes. And we appreciate all of the district's help during the audit. The next item that I'm going to go through is the financial statement report, which is the bound copy that you have in front of you. There's a couple reports in the financial statements that I'll address. Pages 1 and 2 are the auditor's report. The auditor's report includes standard language regarding standards that we use for the audit, but most importantly, everybody's always interested in the opinion that we issued on the financial statements. The opinion can be found on the second page in the second paragraph, and we issued an unmodified opinion under the on the Kansas regulatory basis of financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the highest and best opinion you can receive and speaks very highly on the financial management of the school district. Throughout the rest of the financial statements, there weren't really any significant changes. It's all standard information that you're probably used to seeing over the years, but the next piece that I like to address is the single audit, which begins on page 43, but the best page to probably reference is really page 45 that kind of provides a summary. Since the district received and expended more than $750,000 in federal awards during the year, you are required to receive a special audit over those expenditures. This year, we audited 4 different grants. It was the Title I grant, the Elementary School Emergency Relief Grant, the Improving Teacher Quality State Grants, and the Coronavirus Relief Funds grants. We have letters then on the following pages for over compliance and internal controls over both of these, or all of these grants. And again, I'm happy to report that we did not have any findings that are included in any of these letters over our audit of the grants. Ultimately, I would like to thank all of the district staff that we worked with this year. They're extremely helpful during the audit, and they help the audit go very smoothly, which makes our job easier. So I thank you for your time this evening, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Brad. Dr. Nguyen, I'll just point out, please, Ms. Smith will be in contact with you to get you the report, so we make sure you have that. But open for any questions for Brad or Jonathan.
I did just want to point out, too, that tonight this is being presented to you as an informational item only, so that you will have your paper copy to take home and review before the next meeting. So we would plan to bring this back to you at the January 25th meeting for actual approval. So if you do have any questions that can't be easily answered just at the podium tonight, we invite you to email those either to myself, Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Turan. We'd be happy to research and get you a more detailed answer, but we are open for any questions that you may have at this time.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll just reiterate again, as Brad said, if you do have questions as you review the documents, please send those to Brad and Dr. Stubblefield. Dr. Turan will follow up with you. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is our new business, and board, please note, again, these are not necessarily presentations. Hopefully you've had a chance to review these items. This now is the time if you have any specific questions or comments to these agenda items. And Dr. Stubblefield, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I can go through them.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. The first item for new business, this item you received some information on. We are bringing it as information today, but actually asking for you to approve it tomorrow, just given the time-sensitive components of the background checks for the tutors, so that we can provide the services to our students as soon as possible, because just the background check and the other procedural things that we have to go through, they can take a couple of weeks to get in place. So we just want to get this to our students as soon as possible. So are there any questions regarding the two tutoring options that would be provided to the students?
Do we know when they might be able to tell us if they're able to provide bilingual lessons? I got the question answered, but I know it's in process, but do we have any time span? 'Cause we got so many kids that speak so many different languages, and we want to make sure that we can cover everybody.
Right. What is currently confirmed as it relates to that question is English and Spanish. What they can provide support to is our ELL learners, because it looks a little bit different, so they can accommodate that.
Okay.
But it is currently for our English-speaking and Spanish-speaking students.
And then we also, in those cases where students may speak other languages, can work with Jackie Rodriguez and her department with interpreters to provide a layer of support for those who may be in person, or because it is, some of it will be provided during the school day and after school, so we can make arrangements around that as much as possible. So we'll have to work through it because it is new to us as well. Yeah.
Ms. Russell.
How does this process impact the actual classroom, and have we gotten feedback from teachers and administrators about the implementation of this program so late in the game?
So my understanding is this is something that's been in the works since last year that teachers and administrators have requested, but navigating through COVID and identifying the right partners who have provided this type of support in person in school districts with similar demographics, it took some time to navigate through that. but they are supportive of it. Depending on the school and the school schedule, those individuals work directly with the building principals and the staff there to figure out what's the best time of day, when the students are in small groups and that kind of thing. So it will look different at each building depending on their schedule and their intervention and support schedule. For the secondary schools are on the Wednesdays when the students are early release. It's just a matter of coordinating to make sure that the tutor and the students and the adults from our staff are in the right place at the right time to make sure that students have access to it.
Okay, and I guess my last question is what does a full year financial look like for this program? If we're talking about 2 weeks till implementation, that gets us to February, that's 1 month, and then spring break, so that's maybe a month and a half, April. I'm just trying to figure out if this is the best use of expenditures at this time, or if it's better to hold off and do it in one full year where we will see all of the perks that were mentioned here.
So this will carry over into next school year. We're just starting it this year, correct, Dr. Campbell, am I wrong?
So this $2 million is for the entire school year?
It will be for the duration of the school year. For the duration of the for where we're at 22 portion of our school year. So new contracts will have to be applied. And part of what took place, this kind of gives you an idea of what the support for the number of students across our district, K through 12, of what this would entail for a year. There was, of course, it's been prorated, and that consideration was taken in with our vendors. And they can possibly provide additional feedback to your question, but that was taken in consideration.
But my initial conversations, the one that I talked to was TPT, and that is something that we can continue into next school year. But for those students, they would have worked with them for 4 or 5 months, well, however many months are left in the school year, and they then don't necessarily miss out on where they left off from because they have a relationship and history with the students.
My understanding is that we're only paying per individual that we actually, so we may not pay this entire thing.
Correct.
Okay, because my other concern is that those other services that we talked about, they're not having kids show up to tutoring. And so I just want to make sure that we're not expending funds on a service that won't be used. So thank you.
Dr. Stubblefield, may I add something?
Yes, you can introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm Mike Graham with TPT Education Leaders. With the TPT programming, we, in lieu of a late start, a second semester start, our programming will also carry, I think our programming goes all the way through July. So students that are in summer school and summer programming will still be able to take advantage and still be able to receive tutoring services with our programming as well. So the actual start date may be January 2022, and that goes through July of 2022.
Thank you, sir. Other questions or comments from the board members? Okay, if you do have other questions, please email those to Dr. Stubblefield and Dr. Campbell. Again, this will come back tomorrow during our special board meeting.
The next item for information only is the bond refinance renewal, and Tracy Kaiser is available. And also, I'm sorry, I'm losing your name, but they're available to answer any questions about the bond finance renewal, and this is to extend the time for the refinance. So So Tracy, I can turn it over to you if you have anything.
Yes. Yes, thank you. This is just simply a renewal of the bond refinance that the board approved in April of last year. The district's been able to save over $36 million for our taxpayers and interest costs. And there are still $95 million that are eligible to be refinanced. And so we're just continuing to monitor market conditions. The plan is to have a minimum of a $4 million savings for our taxpayers. And so we would not move forward until that is met. So this is just a renewal of what was previously approved. Our bond counsel and Gilmore and Bell have recommended that we approve it annually. And Dustin A.V. is here if you have any questions.
Questions from the board? Dr. Nguyen?
Help me, thank you, Mr. Lopez. Help me understand, what do you do with the savings?
They would not be charged to the taxpayers. So it would reduce the amount the taxpayers have to pay.
So the 30 million is reduced from the total amount due?
Correct. And Dustin, are you here if you would be able to answer that more clarifying?
Hey, I'm Tracy. Hi, Dr. Nguyen. Yes, so to answer your question.
Hi there.
Hi. To answer your question, as with all refinancings, the bond and interest fund is a dedicated fund, and so any savings in that fund has to be applied to that fund. And so the $30 million of savings just reduces the annual payments made by the school district on those existing bonds.
So, and again, we're talking about just the words. If you're reducing annual payments, does that mean you reduce the total amount due?
The total debt service payment over time does get reduced because you're reducing the interest expense associated with those bonds.
Okay, and the next time you bring this, Mr. Lopez, I'd request that you again provide us something in writing, just for our own records. So thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Other questions from board members?
Well, again, I'm trying to understand this. They're saying that the interest rates are going to go up 3 times this year. So how does that affect us? I'm just trying to understand it.
That's actually, Tracy, should I go ahead and answer?
Yes, please do.
Okay. That's actually a very good question and something that we continue to monitor every single day. There's a couple different variables. So Fed funds action, right? So what we've heard thus far is that the Fed anticipates increasing short-term interest rates, which is the Fed funds rate. Could be up to 4 times this year. So there's short-term bond rates and there's also long-term bond rates. So we are monitoring both of those interest rates in terms of the impact on the school district. I would say that there's actually a positive trend right now with respect to the anticipated savings. And again, as you're all aware, we've been monitoring this really almost on a daily basis here for quite some time. The board authorized this back in April. Really, there was not enough savings during last calendar year to justify any sort of refinancing. When we started the renewal process back in December, savings was probably in the $2 to $2.5 million range. Right now, we're probably closer to $3.5 million in total savings. Again, we're trying to achieve a minimum of $4 million in total savings. So we're watching market conditions very closely. And yes, short-term interest rates are impactful to the school district, but more importantly, because the bond issue, the term of the bonds goes out to 2037. We're also very closely watching the impact of long-term bond rates.
Thank you.
Very good question.
Seeing no other questions, again, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you for joining us. Board, if you have more questions, please send those to Dr. Stubblefield and to Tracy. And again, this is information only. This will come back in front of the board at the next board meeting.
And the last item under new business is Imagine Learning, presented by Jackie Rodriguez. It's intervention support for our students at the buildings that are identified, and Jackie is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there questions from the board regarding Imagine Learning? Again, this is information tonight, so if you do have questions as you continue to review the information, please send those along. Okay, seeing no questions, we will continue on with our agenda. And actually, I will, I know we've been going a couple hours, give a 7-minute recess. So board, stretch your legs, and we will reconvene in 7 minutes. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get back into the groove of the meeting. Thank you for giving us a little grace to take a quick stretch, so thank you. Jump right back into the agenda. Next up, we have some board updates and approval. First up, we have an update on the Kansas City Teacher Residency Partnership and Agreement.
So it's been a while, but we did bring this to the board a few months ago. And in the meantime, we had to make sure the MOU was aligned for the state of Kansas. And tonight, we're bringing it back for approval. And if there are no questions, we're asking you to approve the KCTR partner school agreement to be implemented here at KCKPS.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Board, you have the information in front of you. It's been presented before, but we will open up for questions. Ms. Page.
I guess my problem with it is that we have a human resource department, and it just seems like we're outsourcing this. And it's kind of like, well, what do these people do? You know, I know what they're supposed to do, and they're looking more toward elementary. I get that. But we still got a department with people who are supposed to be doing this, and we seem to be outsourcing. And that bothers me, because it seems like we're paying two different people to do the same thing that they're supposed to be doing.
So I will say that the Kansas State Department of Education approved our Teach Fellow program for the secondary level. We do not have approval for that program at the elementary level. This particular organization does, and so therefore that's why we are asking to partner with them, because the process to get approval takes a while. I know they've been working with KSDE for a couple of years. So if we were to start the process, it could possibly take a couple of years. I honestly have not gone through it, but it's the first one that we have seen in elementary on the Kansas side, because Kansas actually has some of the most rigorous standards to get a teaching certificate across the country. Is one of the more challenging states to get there. So it takes a while to do that. But we, you know, to be transparent, to my knowledge, we have not explored elementary. It just takes a lot to have it in place.
Okay.
In prior years, there was no real shortage of elementary teachers, and now elementary teaching is considered a hard-to-fill area, which is a challenge for a lot of districts, but it's our reality in education, yeah.
And I think just from, and I'm recalling the presentations that we've heard in the past, just the, you know, again, with the shortage in teaching, I think one of the benefits of a program like a KCTR is their laser focus on really recruiting those Black and brown teachers and making sure that that's really their focus and preparing them and getting them ready. HR, I think that is part of their job, but there's so many other pieces that they're working through. But a program like this is very focused on supporting, building up, training, and making sure that they're prepared and that we're ready as well as a district to have them in our district and in order to retain them. So I hear what you're saying. I don't think we want to duplicate efforts, Ms. Page, and I get that. But it's also, this is another, I see it as another strategy and a partner who is doing this work, has done it successfully on the Missouri side, from what I understand, and just another tool in our toolkit as a district to recruit and help retain those qualified educators.
Motion.
Other questions or feedback?
Mr. Lopez, may I ask a question, please?
Absolutely. Dr. Nguyen, please.
Right. So I guess it's for Dr. Stubblefield again or Elizabeth. So how many teachers are we looking at? And again, help me remember what the cost.
Dr. Stubblefield, do you want me to take that?
Yes.
Okay, so the number of teachers for the first year is, we're looking at maybe starting with 2, 3, or 4, no more than that. And the cost is $15,000 per teacher is our investment from the district level for that residency year. And then after that, we pay them as regular teachers.
And if I remember, wasn't there an additional 25,000 that was not clearly and openly stated in that presentation?
No, and the partners are here, but no, there's not an additional, to my knowledge.
Well, we can easily go back and look at the YouTube, but go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, I would invite Andrew to come up and share about the details of the contract. But what it is essentially is a good faith, I think, deposit. And that's what the standard, and I don't think it was meant to be hidden, but.
And I'm not saying it was meant to be hidden. It just wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, so there's a $15,000 deposit that is then refunded to the district over the life cycle of the contract. So what was, my recollection is what was unclear in the previous presentation was whether that deposit was per resident or a single $15,000 deposit, and that part was admittedly unclear. To be really clear, it is a single $15,000 deposit that is refunded to the district over the life cycle of the contract, and that's all spelled out in the MOU.
Yeah,
And I
I
apologize
just
for the
pulled it
confusion.
up. So after October 1st, we would receive back 7,500. After November 1st, we receive 6,250. And December, we receive a payment. January, and then February, we would receive, by March 1st, we would receive the entirety of the deposit back.
Other questions?
And once we take them through, then they owe us back 3 years.
So the way that residents who participate in the program, or the way it's stipulated, is that a resident who finishes their contract, or finishes their residency year with us, they are obligated to serve and teach for 1 full year within the district that trains them. So there's a right of first refusal for KCK. There's no obligation on KCK's end to hire unless they feel that the person has met your standards, and principals and HR manage that. But if they feel like they've met the standards, then that resident is obligated to accept that contract. Now, the nuance is that as it stands right now, KCK will be our only partner in the state of Kansas. And residents are required to fulfill their contract within our partnership network. So in effect, for the short term, residents' only option would be to continue to teach in KCK. However, technically speaking, they could move on to another district. Our organization works really hard to ensure that residents stay put within districts that they've been trained in. We go out and intentionally look for people that are committed to the districts that they're going to be placed in. So a lot of our recruitment efforts, particularly this year, particularly in our work with Liz, is going to be focused on finding people that are already working within the district, that are already living and serving within the district in some capacity, and that already have demonstrated a level of commitment to KCK, the kids and families that are here. So the idea is that rather than going out and finding somebody else and convincing them to move somewhere and having them commit to a space, we're going out and finding people that have already demonstrated that commitment. And so we believe that the likelihood of them staying put goes up. But even if you just look at our success rates within districts that we already work with, we see that people typically tend to stay where they've been trained because they're familiar with the landscape, they're familiar with the teachers, they're familiar with the kids, they build relationships with families. And as a result of those relationships, they tend to stay put.
So they're only required to give us back 1 year, and we paid for 3, really 4, give or take a little.
Well, the way, the nuance that I would offer would be, we're pretty upfront that the right of first refusal only applies to that first year. So the school district is paying for the right to both train and then have that person serve in the district for that year. That $15,000, the way we frame it is that we believe that residents have a positive impact in the classroom or even during the residency year. Most of them serve in a capacity that looks oftentimes very similar to a paraprofessional. They are authentically a second adult. They're not just there to make copies or to take kids to the bathroom. Our residents serve as literacy specialists in some buildings. They oftentimes pull small groups towards the middle and into the later parts of the year. They're oftentimes just a full-blown second teacher as they finish up their credentialing. So that's, the first year, and then you're right, after that, second year where they are obligated to teach within the district, they could move on. I think what we're betting on is that they won't, because they'll have established a strong enough relationship with the building that they're working in, a strong enough relationship with the district, and deep enough ties that they'll choose to stay.
But I just want to clarify, the residency program is only, we pay 1 year, $15,000 for one, it's a 1-year program. So it's a one-to-one in that case, yeah.
Thank you. Other questions?
Can I ask one more question, please?
Yes, please.
What about the licensure? This may be Elizabeth's question.
Dr. Nguyen, can you clarify, what do you mean, what about the licensure? Like, how do they get their license?
So after 1 year residency, surely they don't have a license, a Kansas license, if Kansas doesn't recognize it.
Also, it'll be, it's kind of like the other alternative certification programs. They're going to be on a provisional/restricted license for that first year of classroom teaching, the first and second year, which is the same thing that our fellows do. It's kind of like what our parity teachers do. And then they'll be eligible for a professional license after that. And so, and it kind of, to speak to what Andrew was speaking about earlier, they won't, if they leave us, they'll have a hard time finishing that licensure process. And so it's another way that it strengthens our commitment to each other, the teachers in the district. But it is, you're right that we've had to work out a special relationship with KSDE to make this permittable, because this is not a standard, doesn't fall under the standard umbrella of licensure.
So to restate what you just said, after 1 year of this pilot program, or well, it won't be pilot, whatever they're doing, 1 year, they get a provisional license? A provisional what, certificate?
So it's I think it's what they're going to call it is a restricted license, which is the same thing our fellows are on for their first year.
Okay.
It's because in Kansas there's a transitional license, a provisional license, and a restricted license, and then an initial license. And what they're going to call this, after that residency year, they're going to have a restricted license, which means they're only allowed to teach under the supervision of us with a particular kind of mentor in a particular kind of setting. And then after that, they get to move to an initial license, which they have to be on for 2 years before they can move to a professional license.
And we have that assurance from the Kansas Department of Education?
Yes. It was hard won, because that's, new territory for them and for us.
And I guess, Dr. Stubblefield, here's my question, and here's my similar discomfort. And this is no disrespect to either, let me make that very clear, either the program or our staff. Why can't our staff do the same thing these people are doing? Dr. Stubblefield.
I'm not saying that our staff can't. It just takes the time of providing, one, you have to outline the program and the assurances to make sure that during the residency year that you're providing those learning opportunities, those mentor opportunities, and that instructional component to ensure that these people are ready to be elementary teachers. And once you establish that, you have to negotiate or work with or collaborate with KSDE to ensure that, because after that 1 year, we would hire them and they would be teaching our students like any other teacher. So it's not that our staff could not do this. We would just be a few years away of actually having to build out a program to address those components that are required by KSDE. So if it's a long-term goal, like to build the capacity of the staff to do it, that's something that we can explore. But right now, we don't even have anything to present to KSDE for an elementary program.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Kansas City Teachers Residency Partnership School Agreement.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. I'll open up for further questions or discussion.
I think my only statement would be, I appreciate the programs, and we're putting a lot of money into recruiting and getting staff in. I would like to see us spend that same time in being able to retain our staff, be able to build morale, figure out why they are leaving. So I believe in the Great Resignation, and I know all that's happening, but we were having problems beforehand, and we've received a lot of feedback of, we're tired, we're overworked, we need our breaks, and so I think we need to put that same energy into retaining our staff.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions?
Well, I'll just make the comment that I have such discomfort with whether or not we want to admit it. It appears to be duplication of services. It appears to be not holding our own staff accountable, in my opinion. Again, I'm saying I'm not attacking, and I'll repeat it again because the lies go out really fast. I'm not attacking our staff, but if we have an HR department, whomever, and I've asked the question, I did not expect to get an answer, hundreds of, thousands of dollars we spend on our staff whose job includes exactly what these people are doing. Are we not holding our staff accountable? Do they not have the proper training? Do they not have the opportunity? This, and again, no respect to this organization, they don't have a secret sauce. That it's a duplication of services, and we continue to outsource. At the same time, we give, and you know how I feel about this, people high salaries and high raises. So I can't support this because it's a duplication of services, and we're acting like it's not.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Other comments or questions? There's a motion and a second on the floor. Seeing no more, I will ask Ms. Smith to do a roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Again, I'll explain my no vote as a duplication of services, and the taxpayer of Kansas City, Kansas needs to pay closer attention to how we're spending money in view of the fact that our budget is going to be reduced. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Meidel.
Thank you. The next item for approval is, this was a discussion that actually took place, from my understanding, with the board prior to me coming, around approving Juneteenth as a holiday. But when we went back to look at the motions and adding it as a part of our calendar, I couldn't locate it, so we're bringing it to the board to add as a federal holiday. It is in the summer. So therefore, the cost is associated with the potential number of employees who are not 12 months who would be receiving an additional holiday, mainly staff that may be supporting summer school in some manner, because summer school is typically during the month of June.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the Juneteenth holiday is submitted. Open for questions or discussion. Ms. Russell.
I put it in my comments, but I would like to publicly say that I am supportive of this motion. However, I do want to continue to see education not only for our students, but for our staff. The response was something related to ensuring that curriculum and resources are diverse, but I want to make sure that we're not just following mainstream and making it a federal holiday, but we are honestly having a conversation about what this actually means and what this means for our diverse individuals of students as well.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
Dr. Stubblefield, help me understand what you just said. Did I hear you say it only impacts the people who work in the summer, during summer school?
Well, it's a June holiday, so those of us that are on a 261-day contract, you're not going to have to pay us any additional money. But there will be those people who typically don't, like summer school teachers and others, that's not in the budget. So therefore, if all of the numbers that we predict for summer school, it will be up to the $72,000 because it'll be a paid day off for them.
So why wouldn't it apply to all employees if it becomes recognized?
It will,
holiday?
it will apply to all employees, but we are not going to get an additional payment from our contract. It'll be a day that we don't work, but you're not going to pay us any more than you would have already paid us. Like that day, it's already budgeted for us to be paid. So that's
right. I understand.
Yeah. So it'll
You're
apply to all.
speaking of.
Yeah.
I'm speaking of the other employees.
It'll apply to anybody working at that time, but because there are some people who don't we typically don't have a holiday in June, so we're going to have to pay a paid holiday because those individuals would not have had a paid holiday. That's why there's costs associated with it.
Right. And again, I don't mean to make this complicated, but July 4th is included in the number of paid holidays for everybody, right?
Yes.
And other people don't work on July 4th, but they still get that paid holiday?
No, if you're not at 261 days, it's a holiday. So for our teachers, they're not receiving payment for that. Their contract is a 10-month contract that's spread over 12 months. So they are not getting additional pay for July 4th. It's just a federal holiday. If teachers' contracts were to expand to 12 months, it would be an additional cost because then we would be paying them for a holiday.
I understand that. What about secretaries?
If they are a 261-day employee, they have the paid holiday. If they're not working during that time, they do not get paid for July 4th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Londa Clark,
Wanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item that we're asking for approval for was brought before the board on December 7th, and is the replacement vehicles. And if there are any questions, I believe Doug and Dr. Turan are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Questions from the board? Dr. Nguyen?
Well, I'll just be consistent. I believe that the board will have to seriously consider the number of automobiles and vehicles in our fleet, because as Dr. Stubblefield mentioned a couple months ago, with our enrollment going down, our budget is going to be impacted. I'll just use that term. And so I think and I'll put it out there again, we seriously need to consider reducing the number of vehicles, therefore would reduce the number of the amount we spend on, for lack of a better word, transportation. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the proposal from Shawnee Mission Ford in the amount of $153,457 for the replacement of shop service vehicles as submitted by Mr. Doug Clements, Director of Physical Properties?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
On the Brownlee page, no.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, no.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, no.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, continuing with our agenda, we are down to the board discussion, and we have with us, unfortunately, Mr. Bill Brady could not join us this evening, but we have with us Sean Miller, who can go over the conversation around legislative priorities. So, Mr. Miller, thank you for joining us tonight, and we're glad you could join us virtually.
Thank you, President Lopez, Vice President Clark, members of the board. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry Bill couldn't be here tonight, but I really appreciate the chance to join you virtually. I just got the low bandwidth warning, so if I somehow buffer, somebody try to let me know. But I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the 2022 legislative session. Actually, while we've been in this board meeting, the governor, Laura Kelly, has given her State of the State address for 2022 and has begun to outline her priorities. She will release her budget for the fiscal year 23 tomorrow morning, and both the House and Senate in a joint budget committee at 10 a.m. will begin to pare through that a little bit. We're sort of late in the meeting here. I was really hoping when we were talking short and long-term Fed bond rates that maybe that's where you'd put me in. Normally when we talk policy, I see people's eyes glaze over, and I thought maybe I had a chance right after short and long-term federal fund rates to maybe be the star of the show. But some of the other discussions we've had have been pretty fascinating tonight. To kind of give you just a peek into the 2022 session, there's a couple of things I think that'll really dominate this session. First off, 2022 is a redistricting year for the state of Kansas, and that means that the Kansas House and Senate have to redraw all of the state House maps. They've got to redraw all the state Senate maps, and of course they have to redraw the federal congressional delegation maps. So that can be pretty politically dicey. It really can slow things down a little bit. The redistricting committee has begun to meet this week, but we have not seen any maps floated yet. And until we do, that may be sort of what holds up some of the session. There is some good news in this, and that is despite the pandemic and despite sort of all of the things that we've been through the last several years, our budget has a pretty significant surplus. We are running an almost $3 billion budget surplus in the state of Kansas. That's probably the biggest budget surplus that we've had in history. And in the political world, that'll cut two ways, right? People will be excited because perhaps we won't have to make those very difficult cuts. But at the same time, what do we do with this $3 billion? There'll be a lot of different ideas. It is an election year for both the statewide offices and the state House of Representatives. And so you'll have a lot of different ideas out there. And that will be tax refunds to individuals. That will be things like eliminating the food sales tax. Perhaps it'll be changes in personal income tax or corporate income tax. It may seem a little crazy to say, but certainly in the landmine of a state budget, you can get rid of $3 billion really, really fast with just a couple of policy measures. And so I think it's really critical for people to look. The governor outlined in her speech tonight, certainly that one of the priorities is ensuring that we fully fund that third year of school finance that was decided during the Gannon case a couple of years ago from the state Supreme Court. We're still under that maintenance of effort in the CPI increase. So that'll be really critical for all of our schools, but also for all of our legislators, I believe. As we talk about budgets, of course, then we move directly into the tax issues that I mentioned as well. We've already seen a number of bills introduced in the two tax committees, the House and Senate tax committees, just today, mostly that would deal with food sales tax. And then, of course, as we talk about the political decisions, and I see, as I look at my gallery on Zoom, Dr. Nguyen is immediately next to me. This is one of those election years where I'm really glad that I'm not a legislator, because they have to make so many tremendously difficult decisions that may sound very easy or sound very politically friendly, but have long-term budget ramifications that people have to understand. And I'll give you just sort of the 30,000-foot view, and it is there's a proposal to eliminate the food sales tax. That sounds great. It's very popular. It may be an excellent idea. It's worth about $450 to $500 million per year in lost revenue to the state. That is critical. It's money back in the pocket of Kansans, but in the out years, when we no longer have this large budget surplus, it creates some really difficult decisions. And that is, if we get into another downturn, obviously the stock market's going, pretty great guns right now, but if we're in 2 years and the economy is struggling and inflation is high, then we now have $450 to $500 million that's no longer available to us on an annual budget. And we have to make some really hard decisions. So what do? Do we raise taxes somewhere else? Do we cut social? There's really just no easy decision. And so I always really, because this year is going to be one of those that's really going to be difficult for them. Finally, talk about a couple of additional issues, the things that we're really looking at and really watching. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of discussion, sort of a microcosm of the early part of tonight's meeting. There will be a lot of discussion about COVID, about policies and procedures, what we should or shouldn't do statewide, and those become very difficult political decisions as well. So I think we're going to see a number of bills early in the session that discuss whether it be schools or hospitals or nursing homes, the flexibilities, the things that we can and can't do to try to deal with the difficulties that the COVID pandemic continues to bring us. I know Dr. Stubblefield talked earlier about House Bill 2134, the 40-hour limitation before we move into a remote learning. That's going to be something that's very difficult to deal with in this political environment, but it's going to be something that is really going to be important and that schools across the state are going to have to watch for. It may be easy to say that if a student is sick, they need to quarantine, and perhaps that's a medical exception and it doesn't count against the full-time learning versus remote learning. But when you have staff get COVID and staff is out, and now suddenly students can't learn in the classroom because there's not enough staff, that probably doesn't meet some of those qualifications. And I think that's going to be really difficult to change in the legislative session. So we are going to have a lot of hard things to deal with this year. That's sort of a 30,000-foot view, I think, of the 2022 session. I'm happy to answer, to the best of my ability, any questions that you have, or go into additional topics a little more if you'd like to. But I'd rather spend my time addressing your questions and what you'd like to talk about than just me pontificating on the 2022 session.
Thank you, Sean, for that update. I'll open the floor to the board members for any updates, and especially as you mentioned, Dr. Nguyen, any insight on anything you'd like to share for us, particularly to be paying attention to?
We'll provide the board with the report, the committee report, the special K-12 meeting, the two-day meeting, as well as the minority report. It is, it's long, but it does provide you with a great in-depth discussion of the main issues that the majority party will perhaps introduced, and then you will have let's say, the additional topics that were left out. But I've worked with Sean Miller for many years now. I look forward to working with him again in Bill Brady's absence. But understandably, we all know it's a very partisan year, and it's going to be tough.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. We're lucky to have you down there representing us and fighting for us every day, so thank you. Board members, questions for Mr. Miller? Sean, I'm curious, just one thing that I typically try to keep an eye on is around in-state tuition, and I know that's something that Dr. Nguyen also really advocates for. Is that something that is being looked at as potentially, going away for students, or anything you could share around that?
So can you give me just a little bit of additional, we're talking about in-state tuition for our Kansas Board of Regents universities, and if so, applying to...
Repealing in-state tuition for undocumented students.
Thank you, Dr.
I'm with you now. Sorry, I should have made the jump. That's one of those things that we always watch for because it can be sort of a political hot button issue that comes up in election years. Dr. Nguyen, you might correct me, but I just haven't seen quite the fervor around that in the last year or two, and I haven't heard it come up much yet this year. Certainly, there are a handful of legislators that, given the opportunity, might attempt to do a floor amendment on something like that. Without having talked to her, I would sort of project that I don't think that's something that our current governor would sign into law, and I think it would be very difficult to get to a veto override number on something like that. So I think that's a difficult issue for someone to try to push through this year to eliminate that in-state tuition that's currently being given.
I always say I still have skin on the concrete from that issue, but that too, I think the opposition, the majority party, will like to use critical race theory and the lack of their understanding to be the whipping boy.
Thank you. Other questions from board members? Okay. All right, Sean, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Give our best to Bill, and let's continue the great work we're doing down there. And thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Continuing on, next we will get an update from the school naming committee, and Ms. Clark is here to give us an update. Ms. Clark.
So last Wednesday, Dr. Yeager, Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Turan, and myself met to talk about the school renaming. We have prioritized schools, not that any of them are not important, but we have a list here that we would like to propose to the board that we start committees for. So for Arrowhead Middle School, Arrowhead came up, and instead of necessarily renaming the school, we would like to think about renaming or choosing a different mascot. Fairfax White Church, right now the school kind of goes by two names because we know that they're in the building, and then Fairfax, we've already talked about renaming that school. So if we had to say what are our priorities, we would like for Fairfax White Church to be our #1 priority, if possible, because we want our students to be able to go in and have a solid name for next year. The third school that we talked about and wanted to make a priority would be Mark Twain Elementary, and thinking about renaming that school as well. And then we have others on our list, Washington High School, Lindbergh, J.C. Harmon, F.L. Schlegel. Those schools have all been brought to us as well. But again, for starters, if we said, what's our #1? Let's start with #1, and I think I said it backwards a few minutes ago. Start with #1, Fairfax and White Church, get our students a solid name, the mascot for Arrowhead, and then definitely look at Mark Twain. So our suggestion would be that we start committees. We start thinking about committees, assigning board members to those committees, definitely getting our community involved, making sure that we have a wider range of individuals involved so that we have a lot of different voices at the table. The suggestion came up on how can we use social media as well. Dr. Stubblefield, did I miss anything? I think I covered it. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Are there questions for Ms. Clark? Dr. Nguyen?
I'd like to have a comment from Greg. Did that meeting follow board policy? The criteria already established in board policy of renaming?
I think the initial committee, and I believe it was noticed up by the clerk.
Yes, it was.
Would satisfy the criteria for the naming of facilities committee. What
It
takes,
was noticed as a public meeting?
I believe so, yes. I believe the board clerk noticed it. I'm seeing nods of the head, yes.
It was.
Yes.
Correct,
it was.
yes.
So it was noticed up as a public meeting per policy and per the requirements, so yeah, it satisfies the requirement for the initial meeting. Now, for any actual renaming decision-making, there has to be community input, and so that's the next step of the process.
Right.
And I guess this is my question to any of the committee members. I guess my original question is, does anybody actually know the historical background of why Fairfax was named Fairfax? Because if it was named after Alfred Fairfax, he was the first African-American legislator in Kansas. So that is not a negative type of connotation. So was there any research done on the actual name of Fairfax? And that, of course, White Church is White Church because of the area the school's in?
So the knowledge that I have is that Fairfax was named after its location. If that is wrong, someone else will have to tell me that, but that is my understanding.
I'm just asking the historical background. Is it documented that it's not after Alfred Fairfax, but that it is Fairfax, the region, the industrial area?
For me, that would have to be a takeaway. I do not have that answer. That's the only answer I have tonight.
I guess my other concern is, are you suggesting that Apache, the name Apache, is derogatory?
Yes, that is what we talked about, and it can be taken derogatory towards other individuals. So it's not necessarily the school, Arrowhead Middle School, but the mascot, yes.
And
the mascot is just a name of a tribe.
So the information that was shared in the meeting by Dr. Yeager and some information that she received is that naming it after the tribe really provided permission for people to take on negative imagery and or to misrepresent the tribe because they are trying to embody being an Apache member of the Apache tribe, and they're actually not, is what I recall from the conversation.
So is there an image of the mascot that is a Native American, an Apache? I mean, I'm sorry, I haven't seen the mascot, picture of the mascot.
Yes, it is yes, it's a depiction of a Native American.
Is it factual or is it derogatory?
It is probably more typical of commercialize how Native Americans have been commercialized and marketed around what the perception is. So I don't know if it's factual, but it is definitely a commonly seen, more commercialized image.
Yeah. And we can also get the community's involvement on, should the name be changed for the school? Should it just be the mascot? I think that's a reasonable question for our community as well, and that naming committee.
Okay, so help me remember, what is the next step, the next movement, next action?
What we are suggesting is committees be formed, bringing in our community, of course, our schools and hopefully our students, so that they can help us determine what's next.
A committee made of how many members from which groups? Is that clear, or is it board members?
So what I have today is 1 to 2 board members for each committee, and it is a discussion. So the board also, if you have suggestions or recommendations on who should be involved, we're happy to take those as well. We just wanted to get things started and be able to bring this back to say, here's where we are, here's where we prioritize. Board, what do you want to do next?
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Other questions for Ms. Clark? I will say that regarding the Native American imagery, the governor had a committee on racial equity and justice, and they put out a report earlier in the summer of last year, 2021, which talked about reviewing and eliminating the use of Native American mascots, imagery, and names by educational institutions, sports teams, et cetera. So that, I think, was part of the reason that the committee was reviewing that that particular mascot to see if there's something different that we could do based on, partly on the governor's recommendations from that report as well. So Ms. Clark, is there and I should have asked you earlier, I'm sorry, a follow-up meeting that you all have set or are looking for at this time?
Thank you. Follow-up would be, if it's the wish of the board, then we would go ahead and entertain a motion to be able to move forward, work with getting those committees established, and be able to take action.
Thank you. So is there and Mr. Goheen, you might want to help us here.
And just to be clear, any committee report would come back to the board for final action. It's still the board's decision on everything.
So we're setting up 3 different committees, just to be clear so everyone on the board's on the same page, correct? To look at those individual schools, facilities, names, mascots.
So that can also be discussed. So we have the 3 to 4 schools that we definitely prioritize. We know that we definitely need to take care of White Church, Fairfax, have that discussion, and Arrowhead. Said, give me the number 1 priority. How many committees do we want happening at the same time? And our number 1 priority would be Fairfax and White Church, so that our students can come back with the name. And then Arrowhead would be next, and Mark Twain. So I think the conversation goes to the board. How many committees do you want to be involved with? How many committees do you want taking place at one time? Any thoughts there?
So board, open to discussion regarding committees and what you would like this structure to look at based on policy that we do have, and Mr. Goheen can guide us to make sure we're going through that correctly.
I think we need to research all 3 of the suggestions that are made before we make any final decisions. That way, once the committees have established, they will present the information, and then we can make a decision as a board as to which direction we can go in. But I think including schools and the public in itself, our committees and students, will help us to be able to learn more, but also to engage ourselves more with each other so that we can make a decision as a board.
Ms. Drew, just so I make sure I understand, you're saying to bring back the history for each one of these schools, what we have.
I'm suggesting that we look at all 3, but once the committees are working, allow them to be able to find information about the history of the schools so that when the decision to make the change, it will be presented in the right way.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry about that. Other questions or comments? Ms. Russell?
I just had a couple quick comments. I think first on the topic around Arrowhead and imagery, KSB had a workshop. I have not gone to the on-demand stuff, but I would encourage folks, as well as the governor's recommendation. They had an individual that was a representative of a tribe here in Kansas and talked about the importance of carrying that name, those tribal names and those things on, but not the imagery. And I think he did a really good job of helping us explain. And so I think that's where Stacy was also getting some of that additional information from, and the significance there. The other pieces is that I would suggest that the committees not be more than 8 people. I think 1 to 2 board members is good. That allows for, lots of feedback from different stakeholders and different groups. But I also want to make sure that we do prioritize making sure that students are involved in this process. And so if that is them serving in a committee role, that's one thing. If that's just getting a community student advisory group, that can be separate. But I do think for those individual schools, having the kids that are actually there right now have a part in moving this forward.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. And you're right, the KASB is where Dr. Yeager did get some of that. Thank you.
So we do have a committee formed, I guess this is, and this is what I was asking Mr. Goheen, so this would be potentially creating some subcommittees from this one committee to look at those individual schools that you've mentioned, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, which those subcommittees would then report back to the larger committee, which would then report back to the board.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Ms. Humphries?
I'd like to make a motion that we establish 3 subcommittees, one for each of the 3 schools that Ms. Clark mentioned, to report back to the main committee. That way they can have student input, community input into the decision-making process.
Thank you. So motion to establish 3 subcommittees is on the floor.
Second.
There is a second. We'll open up for questions or discussion. Hearing none. I would just, again, since we do have the one committee, I do want to be cognizant of board members' times. I know everyone else has other things, work and other things too. So making sure that we find folks that are committed and with the time. Again, is it appropriate to have the subcommittees or just the one committee that reviews all 3? But it sounds like there's an appetite for the board to have the 3 subcommittees to look at each individual school. Ms. Russell?
I would just say in response to your comments that I also thought the same thing, but I'm also concerned that they're all located and they serve a different purpose. And so if we just have one committee focused on 3 different entities, I think that it can be blindsided and things can be missed. And so by having 3 separate, because these are things that the community is passionate about, I think that it'll just be important that those subcommittees have that opportunity to focus on that one thing. And then I'm also happy to provide any additional support in this endeavor, Ms. Clark, and so just let me know how I can support. And then one thing that I heard in that meeting that I forgot to mention in my last comments was those other high schools that you mentioned that had come up for conversation. It was a statement made that there are more pieces to renaming high schools and legalities and name changes from a KSD perspective. And so I think that's also how you got to the prioritization. Not that those schools weren't important, but that there is some other additional pieces to renaming high schools.
That is correct, yep. We wanted to definitely be able to start moving forward, yes.
Great, thank you. All right, hearing no more questions. Mr. Were you going to? No? Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Clark and the team. I think next steps then would be for you all to reconvene and look at those committees, subcommittee structures, and how you will go forward getting folks onto those committees?
Yes, we'll get with Dr. Stubblefield, yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. So moving forward with our agenda, next is our executive session. So Dr. Stubblefield, if you'd like to dismiss staff.
Staff, you are free to go because none of you are required to attend executive session. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, staff. So I'd entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the parties involved under COMA, with Dr. Stubblefield and Mr. Goheen invited to present, and we're going in at 8:03 for 15 minutes and coming back at whatever time that is. 8:18, thank you. Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to return to open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
B. Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
She said yes.
Yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Yolanda Clark?
I'm here.
Thank you. We're back in open session. Again, board reminder, special board meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon, not in July, I'm sorry. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock. And we will see you here. Any other announcements? Not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.